Hi, welcome to this week's edition of 26 Minutes with, the show that honors those who are leading, making an impact, and creating positive change on the planet and locally. I'm your host, David Cohen, and I'm really pleased to have this week's guest with us. It's Louis Stockley. Louis James Arthur Stockley Jr. is the founder of Operation Dream Big. He is a seasoned IT professional. He's an Army veteran turned mindset coach. And with an extensive IT background and his military discipline, Louis created his online program to empower individuals to pursue their dream lives, really. And his personal triumph over a video game addiction underpins his coaching philosophy of mind over matter, making his approach both unique and highly effective. It's unique because it's personal. Louis is known for leaving a lasting impact on his clients. He also extends his interest beyond his work, exploring his fitness biohacking and reading self-help books avidly. Here too, man. And his journey is a testament to self-reliance, perseverance, and inspiring many to actualize their potential and their dreams. Louis, good day to you. Nice to have you here today.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. And thank you for the intro as well.
Well, what inspired me about you is we both took the Jeff Walker course, which I'll get to a little bit later. But you posted about maybe a month ago your journey, and you posted in your Facebook story your journey of your dark night of the soul that went through you kicking the video game addiction.
Yep.
You had, and that just spoke to me, and I went right away. I gotta talk to you, and we reached out, and here we are, like about a month later, and you're a guest. So I'm really happy that you're here. I'm not so happy that you're from Maryland, because your Baltimore Orioles just trounced my Toronto Blue Jays.
Yep.
They didn't. It's like the Jays should have driven all the Orioles out to the airport and said, "Don't ever come back."
Oh, yeah, it happens, man. It happens. I'm just glad to see him being successful finally.
Yeah, finally is right, because I know the Toronto Blue Jays over the past almost 8 years have had their way with the Baltimore.
Yep. That's true.
Baltimore's in town, easy win. Anyway, but everything turns, right?
Yeah, everything has the up and down, the roller coaster for sure.
Your team's good one day, then the next they're not. So again, welcome. And I guess I want to talk to you first about serving in the U.S. Army. This to me is the highest level of service that anybody can. What did your time in the U.S. forces teach you about life, commitment, and perseverance?
Well, the first real lesson I had about life in the military, well, I would say that the military was my first huge lessons about life, because I joined at 17 years old, fresh out of high school, no male father figure in my life. So the military became the father figure trying to whip me in shape. And I gave him hell. So in the beginning, I got in a lot of trouble. But the first lesson I learned was about setting your intention about what you want. I realized that with intention, anything's possible. And I realized that because in basic training, which is the first official training you do in the military, is 13 weeks long. They break you down in order to build you back up, in the image of a soldier with more discipline, more attention to detail. And so in the effort to do that, you are training physically early every single morning. You're getting about 3 hours or more of sleep, not much sleep, because they're training you to be sleep deprived and still perform. And so for me, there was this one instance where week 2, we get up like any other morning, get dressed, shower, we're going to go run. We're going to go work out. We do these runs that were 2 or 3 miles. And there was this one hill that we run that just destroys you. And it destroys you because the first part of the hill is deceptive. You get up this first hill, you're nice and tired, you're like, okay, good, it's flattening out. and then boom, the real hill hits you, and you have to go up again and try to climb your way up. And everybody will always slow to a jog or even walk because your legs are just burning, your lungs are burning. And what happened to me on that hill that one Monday is that my hip flexor snapped or partially tore. I felt the pop. And I didn't know what it was at the time. I was only 17, never really had a major injury, even though I did track and everything in high school. And it popped, and I felt massive pain there. And I knew from the stories that if I was to go to sick call and report that injury, that was a one-way ticket home. That's how they did it. If you got any major injuries, they would wave goodbye to you and send you home. Of course, help you with the medical and stuff, but that was it. And for me, I knew that home wasn't the place for me anymore. I had joined the military because, yeah, I did have an inherent desire to serve. But at 17 years old, I knew I needed to be more independent and live my own life. And I knew that if I was sent back to live with my mother, we would continue to clash like we were before I left, and things would just be in the wrong place. This was my only way to move forward. And so I made the decision to just keep pushing through despite the injury. So that led to early mornings, me getting up by myself, trying to stretch out this injury, going to bed at night with tears because of the pain when it started to get stiff, just constantly trying to persevere through this major injury. And by probably week 7 or 8, after this happened in week 2, it started to harden. The injury started to harden. Your body does what it does. It adapted, and I was able to start performing at the full level, do these runs, do everything I needed to do. And the leg, for all intents and purposes, got stronger. It didn't really heal the tear. It just started to work around it. All the muscles surrounding it strengthened instead until I could perform properly. So that taught me right then and there, with that solid intention of saying, I'm not going back home. This is what I came to do. And I just had in my head what it would be like if I went back home and what it would feel like if I went forward with this and had that freedom that I wanted. That's what kept in my mind the entire time as I kept pushing through that injury. And so by the end of it, I graduated basic training successfully. That wasn't the only challenge. There were many challenges through the training, but that was one of the more noteworthy ones.
You mentioned, we read your story about, or your bio about, overcoming a video game addiction. You had a dark night of the soul, which we're going to get.
Yep.
And that you grew up without a father figure. And I too lost my dad. He passed away when I was 10.
Sorry to hear.
Thanks, man. And you too, do you think, and I'm reading a book now, hang on, I just got to check what the title is. Oh, Wild at Heart by James Eldridge. And it's about men and our true and without and he talks a lot about not having a father figure present. Yeah. Maybe the dad, he's emotionally unavailable, or he's a workaholic or an alcoholic. Do you think by not having a father figure, as a young boy, that might have contributed to some of the life challenges you've been through?
100%. There were a lot of life challenges. Living with my mother, one of the basic premises of becoming a man, your rite of passage, is at a certain point, you have to talk to your parents and say, it's time for me to go do my own thing. It's time for me to go be my own self. And I didn't have the courage to face my mom and say those things. And so she would ultimately take advantage of it later on. And so even into the military, about a year, I still wasn't able to tell her the things that I needed to say. I wasn't able to speak my truth and say, I need to live my own life now. And it was a lot of guilt and a lot of shame and a lot of things about that. And, later on, I realized when I had a family of my own and this was still going on, I realized that I have a family to protect here, and it's starting to affect my wife and my kids and things like that. And so at that point, I just had to have the direct conversation with her. And I feel like we as men, without a father figure there, who I think his purpose is to challenge you. I think the purpose of the father figure is to kind of teach you more about how life works, preparing you for the external world, and then giving you those challenges along the way to push you to be better, push you to get to the next level. So without somebody there to challenge me in that way and say, hey, you need to pull out some more courage here. You have to speak up about this. You know, it took me a long time to get the courage on my own to build it up.
Yeah, I totally get it. And they talk about that in this book. And then your mom, God bless her, she's well-meaning.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure. Um, However, and I'm not talking about all women, or I'm not labeling
Yeah,
but sometimes how their approach is very different than a dad's approach.
it
you know
is. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and so they might, by what they say or how they act or how they respond, they might emasculate a man, like
Mm-hmm.
you ask
Exactly.
men. And I
Yep.
think we need to build, and especially like you're a coach, so we'll get to this too. We need to build young kids, young boys to be men,
Yep.
and to have, to be okay with being a man, and to be okay with not that a man is about, and you tell me what your view is on this. Not about a macho kind of man necessarily, or a player or whatever, but a man that is, it's real. Like they're okay with themselves, they're okay with their own, being who
Yep.
they are, but they're also okay with being compassionate with
Mm-hmm.
their loved ones, their spouse, their kids, and
Exactly.
be there for their kids too. So it's sort of like you want to be sensitive and loving, but then you also have to step up to the plate,
Yep.
take some tough swings, and maybe even a pitch that's high and inside. So
Exactly.
what's your take on that?
So my take on that is I had the military teaches you not to show weakness. So, and like I alluded to, it became kind of my father figure in that aspect, where it
Mhm.
taught me those different things, and it kind of teach you that emotions don't really have a place on the battlefield because it can get you killed, you know. But the problem is they don't teach you how to compartmentalize that or how to balance that. So that becomes how you walk around 24/7. And that's where my problem as a father came from is I believe that showing emotion was weakness. So what did you do when you got out? I became an emotional robot. And I think that as a man, you have to be okay showing the sides, even if you think they're weakness, because it isn't. It's a strength to be vulnerable, you know. And you also have to be okay with coming from the other side, which is what I call challenging too. You have to be the man and be willing to challenge the people with you that you care about, because that's the only way to allow them to get better. You see, there's the nurturing side that your wife or your mother's going to bring. But then on the man's side, their way of caring is that they challenge, they teach more, and push you to get to the next level. And you need both of those things. And the other thing that I had learned along the way is that when I tried my hardest to step into what I thought the idea of a man was when I always failed the most. You know, at some point I had to relax and realize that my idea of what a man wasn't right because I didn't have an example, and I had to open up to learning, open up to finding examples of it.
Yeah, that's amazing, like life work at an
Yep.
early age. Like you got thrust into it at 17,
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Your message to others, to Lewis, is and now it is about coaching others to live their dream, right?
Mm-hmm.
My question to you is this: sometimes living your dreams is a
Mm-hmm.
lot of work, And as we mentioned, above about, commitment and perseverance and what you have to go through, you've got to you got to persevere to to live your dream, and you have to be resilient as well. So just
Yep,
because it's a dream doesn't mean it's all rainbows and lollipops.
exactly.
There is work to be done.
Hmm.
What do you do when you coach your clients, to live their dream? What do you say to them when the dream becomes a grind? How do you coach them to stay the course, stay persistent, stay resilient, and keep on keeping on, especially
So
when
the
that dream becomes like, ugh.
Yep. So the beautiful part about the people that I naturally end up working with is, from one way or another, they know what their dream is. They know what they really want. And so what they need from point A to point B really is to feel the courage and confidence to start going for it. And so that's where we start usually, is to overcome that negative feeling you have, that fear you have about just taking the even small steps towards it. What I have to end up doing is taking my clients and helping them to see what it would be like for them and the people they care about if that dream came true. Helping them to design what that would actually look like from the beginning, and then taking it further and putting them in it. You, in your mind, you're going to that place, you're feeling what it would feel like, feeling all that amazing positivity around you. And so they have that feeling that I teach them to cultivate every single day as they keep powering through. So that in preparation of when it gets tough, they're able to still lean on that foundation of keeping their emotional state in check and just moving forward. And so the big thing that keeps me working forward on my dream, of course, keeps anybody working forward on their dream, is that when it gets tough, you still have to be able to visualize what it's going to be like at the end of it. You start from the end. And that's something I'm a big proponent of, is you have to know exactly what it is you want before you're even moving forward. And then the other piece is, which I learned the hard way, is I don't advise them to just jump off the cliff and dive all in it. I advise them to start with small steps and keep building on it daily, but don't blow their life up or the life for their family up in order to pursue this. Because at the end of the day, your family, the people that are depending on you, they didn't choose for you to have that dream. They didn't choose to have those sacrifices so that you can go to your dream. You did. So you have to be mindful of the balance there.
Yeah.
But when the going gets tough, it's all about planning, steps, and feeling.
Yeah, feeling your way into it, and yeah, definitely having a game plan, like, how you're going to get what's next, and you just got to keep stepping, and all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden, oh man, it's like you're the hill. You got through one hill,
Yep.
yippee, right? But then you
Yep.
had the other hill that, almost didn't kill you, but boy, it put you in a
Yeah. Yeah.
world.
It puts you through the ringer. Yep.
Yeah. So when who are you coaching? What's your ideal client, and why them? Are they people like you? Like, like, are they
Mm-hmm.
individuals who have gone through similar journeys that you've gone through?
So my ideal clients are what I call heart-centered people.
Mm-hmm.
And some people will call them highly sensitive or empathic or different terms like that. But the usual description of each of these people doesn't even have an age group or a gender, but they have these common things where they will give their shirt off their back for another person, and they've done so many times that they usually will put themselves on the back burner. And that always ends up being something that destroys them and
Yep.
puts them in this place where they're stuck. And when they come to me, they're always in this place where they're looking to transform or transition to the next step in their life, whatever season they're in, and they're stuck. They don't have any idea how to move forward on that. And so that's why I called it Dream Big, because usually the clues for how to do that are in pursuing your dreams. So I always start there. What is it you would want to happen if these blocks weren't blocking you? If you got rid of all these limits, what would you do with that? And it always knocks them off guard because they're always thinking of other people instead of, saying, I got to take care of myself. Like on the airline, I got to put the mask on myself before someone else. They're
Yes.
so used to being invested in what other people desire and what they're feeling that they forgot to check in with themselves. So in a nutshell, it's people like that.
Yeah, I got it. So this could be heart-centered people that are working or entrepreneurs or, into
Yeah, but
athletics.
typically, they're heart center professionals or entrepreneurs, those types.
Yeah. And you're right. You've got to, I feel like if you're not trained properly as a kid,
Mm-hmm.
you'll take the shirt off your back for people,
Yeah.
but you also have to have that balance and say, well, charity also becomes begins at home too.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So at the beginning of our chat today, and I'm really enjoying our interview. You and I
Yeah.
met on a course in April. Well, we didn't
Mm-hmm.
really meet, but I saw you. you
Mm-hmm.
got picked on at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a course with Jeff Walker, who's the author of the book Launch and the creator of the product launch formula. And
Yep.
he helps thousands sell content or products online. He's great at selling the dream,
Yep.
but fails to talk about the development, the planning, the creating marketing emails,
Mm-hmm.
reaching your list, or even getting a list of
Yep.
to talk to. And he also fails to talk about what if you fail at first, right?
Mm-hmm.
So here you are, you're putting all this effort into launching my product and service. It's launch day. It's open cart day today, and yet it doesn't happen.
Yep.
And so in this case, like the dream's a far cry from reality, right? Because in our
Yeah.
head we're seeing like, yeah, I'm going to be like him, and I'm going to make
Mm-hmm.
$30,000 on my first launch. And that can really be a nightmare. To me,
Yeah.
it's about resiliency and accepting failure. You've
Mm-hmm.
been resilient and you've accepted yourself in some really gritty times in your life.
Yep.
Can you speak a little bit more about how you exercised your resiliency muscle and
Yep.
how self-acceptance of yourself also helped? Because when you went through the dark night of the soul, you had to
Yep.
accept what was.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to get to
Yep.
that next.
So for me, one of the things that helped me to develop the resiliency was all the different struggles from childhood up to now, realizing that once I got through it, this is a good statement too that I'll get to, but once I got through it and looked back, it all made sense. Like I learned something or things lined up in the place they needed to be for me to get to the next level. So it's kind of weird because when most people deal with tough challenges like that first military challenge,
Mm,
they take on pain and trauma and damage from it. But for me, it was like, oh, that's why that happened. That's why this makes sense because it was going to get tougher later on. And I've already learned right now that if I just persevere, I'm going to be stronger later because I had a stronger leg. I got more endurance. While other people were complaining about pain, I was like, you don't know what I'm dealing with. So, it just gave me that confidence. And one of the statements that brings that home is that the teacher never gives you the answers before you take the test. So it's like when you're making these decisions to transform and change your life, you will get tested every single time. You should expect that, but understand that the answers aren't going to show up unless you're willing to not quit and keep going. If you quit, you're never going to see what's on the other side of it. And that's what I did. I got curious about what's on the other side. What am I going to learn? What's going to happen? Or how is this laid out?
it's amazing. I love your response and your openness to to your own personal journey and your own growth. I think it's really really super amazing and
Thank
inspiring.
you.
So Lewis, for those listening, it's no secret that the past 3+ years have forced us to really look inside our
Yep.
souls. And
Mm-hmm.
so many people I'm, talking to, or their friends or associates, they're going through massive change right now,
Yep.
or even hitting rock bottom.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing it, globally too. Like the things we could count on, we grew up with,
Yeah.
are kind of collapsing. Talk to us about the stages of a dark night of the soul. You went through it yourself with the video game addiction.
Mm-hmm.
What are the stages of the dark night of the soul? And why, if you experience this, do you not want to fear it? Because it's not the
Um,
most comfortable experience.
so so I don't really have the exact names of the stages, but I could talk about my experience with it leading up to it and after.
Yeah.
And so the big thing that I realized many years before I crashed and hit rock bottom with my gaming addiction is that the signs were all around me telling me, that this is not normal, this isn't natural, and it's not working. And looking back, I can see it clear as day. Like there were moments where I would be sitting there playing a computer game. My wife is pregnant with my daughter, and she's just sitting next to me watching me play this game. And I would look back and just feel the immense guilt and shame of the fact that I would be sitting there for hours, ignoring her needs, ignoring caring for her when she's carrying a life for me. And so there were different signs and I would struggle. And that's what I believe is like the beginning of it is something's off in the back of your mind. And so you struggle forward to try and change it. And so I would struggle to quit the games and I would quit for a week, maybe 2 weeks. But then something would trigger in my head, which I learned later was all the stress. That's how I processed my stress was by pouring it all into the games. But you can only play so many games as the stress just keeps stacking up and stacking. So
Mhm.
my answer was play more games. And that never worked. So then I would get to that highest point where like this is not natural, try to quit and find myself right back to it again. But then you find yourself going outside of what you feel is integrity. Your ideas, your code, your vision for what integrity is, you start stepping outside of that as if it makes sense just to support something that needs to change. And that's for anything. It doesn't even have to be addiction, but it gets you to this point where you start going outside of what you would be okay doing and it feels all right to do that. And for me, what that ended up being is I was hiding thousands of dollars of expenditures on these video games per month from my wife.
Wow.
So that's money to pay bills, money to put food on the table, money for all these different things. I'm hiding it from her to support this gaming habit because you just have to keep building up. It's not giving you the same feeling anymore, just like any addiction would. And so that came to the point where I hit that actual dark night of the soul when my wife found it all. She uncovered the rock that was hiding all that darkness, saw all those bills being spent, and she did what she should have done. She kicked me out that night, and I ended up finding myself overnight in a hotel room. And that was the best thing she could have ever done for me because when you're looking at getting out of this dark night of the soul that you're struggling with, it's about peering inward. That's what you're avoiding doing. You're avoiding looking inside of yourself to find those answers on how to move forward. And so I'm sitting on the bed in this hotel room, flashing back to all these moments in my life like, wow, I can't believe I did all this. I can't believe that I've trashed my life to this point. And then it comes to an actual end when you are posed with these questions. Am I going to keep going forward the way I have been? Meaning, I'm going to go continue to play video games, end up in a basement somewhere, lose my wife, lose my kids, lose my career. Because even in having a successful career, which on paper I was making six figures as an executive in a government agency, I was still going into work early to play video games. I was finding any way I could to function and keep the money going while playing the games. I did a lot. And what I had to think about is, am I going to keep going that way? Or am I going to make a decision to drastically change right here and now and try something different, figure out what's going on? And I'm here talking to you. So I made the decision to say, I'm going to call my wife, which I did. I called her, laid out my plan, and we talked about it. And I said, I'm going to go to therapy, start with a therapist. And as soon as I come home tomorrow, I'm throwing out every game I got. If I can't sell it that day, then it's just going to go in the trash can, because it wasn't about the money or anything. It was about getting rid of that source of where all the trouble was coming from for me, where the pull was. Deleted them all off my phone to my absolute dismay. Got rid of it all, and it was not easy. Some people just can't quit cold turkey. They need support. But I did it without support. And I found out that the reason I was able to do that is because I just have a high level of energy. And if I focus the energy in another direction, then the addiction doesn't even exist as an issue for me. So I took all that energy and I just poured it into the things that I was ignoring, my wife and kids, all the different projects around the house. There's always projects to do.
Oh yeah.
So I kept my hands busy. I got down in my basement because I remembered from the military, my deployments, that when I was working out, I was happiest. I was working out with my unit. We'd be laughing, struggling together, growing, getting stronger. And I said, I want to feel that again. So I knew in my basement, I had push-up bars that were covered in dust. I had a pull-up bar my wife had bought me last Christmas that I didn't use. I said, let me go on YouTube. Let me find some workouts, and I'm going to just start working out as well. So I just did what I could. I did the P90X workout that was pretty popular for us when we were deployed. I just did that over and over again until it got really easy. Then I did insanity workouts. I put them all together when it got too easy, made a tough one out of that, and just constantly looking for ways to build and keep getting busy. And what I was actually doing was healing myself on the inside as I went. And then the last part of the Dark Night of the Soul, for me, that just put like a pin on it, kind of like a capstone, was I got the rare opportunity to help someone else, and I didn't even realize it. There was a veteran brother of mine who had been in the military for 10 years, deploying on and off. He came with PTSD, depression, everything in the book. And he was in a tough place, living in New York by himself. His family wasn't supportive or anything. And my wife is good friends with him because she's German and met him in Germany. And she called him up and talked to me and said, let's have him come stay with us over the holidays. And for me, I was like, okay, he can come hang out with us. We can talk, swap stories. He could eat some food and have a safe space to recover. In that time, I'm full on in my routine. Every morning, I'm getting up at 4 a.m. to do my workouts. I'm blasting whatever motivational content I could find. Then I'm reading books and just doing all that inner work that I could find to keep building that light that I felt building inside of myself. And I didn't think anything of it. But one morning he comes down, asks what I'm up to, and I told him I'm working out. I always had the motivational content super loud. So that probably what caught his attention. And he's like, okay, what are you doing? And then he joined in. He said, and he was 300 pounds. So 300 pounds, never really worked out that much since he got out. And he decided that he was going to work out, do these push-ups, try to do these pull-ups with me. And he would grab the pull-up bar and it would bend under his weight. But he tried every single day and he kept showing up. And I thought it was just two buddies working out together, laughing and just getting, having fun. But what I was doing the whole time was coaching him. I was coaching him. And I realized I was coaching him as I spoke to him and asked him, what is it you want to happen? What's your dream? That's the first time I asked somebody about their dream, and started all this. And he said, I really would like to get into the police academy. I was a policeman in the military. I still feel a strong desire to help people find justice and things like that. And, I just don't think it's possible for me because look, I'm 300 pounds overweight. They're not going to take me in the academy. I'm like, well, let's work on that. What does that look like? How can we do that? And just intuitively, I helped him lose that weight, helped him start getting into a healthier mindset to where he started to heal himself. And about 3 months later, he left. He was around 210 pounds down from 300. His
Wow.
mind was in a much better place, and he went and he applied for the police academy. But true story, he didn't get in. They just weren't comfortable with his military health record, with the mental health aspect of it. But that didn't stop him. He started continuing to live his life. He found himself a job running security and just, found his thing there and kept moving forward. But ultimately, I got out of my dark night of the soul because I got to witness somebody who was in a lower part of that and able to help them, just guide them through as I was finding my way.
Wow.
Yeah.
Powerful stuff. For those tuning in, you're listening to 26 Minutes with. I'm your host, David Cohen, and our guest is Lewis Stockley. And we're talking about going through life when, challenges in front of you are almost too much to bear. I want to take a break here because we've gone a little bit over, but
Yep.
great information. So a couple things. We're going to come back with a deeper dive. And when we do, we're going to look at, a little bit more about, the lessons learned with what you went through, but also this idea of mind over matter that you talk about, and also about making hard choices in life.
Yep.
Before we do end our 26 minutes with segment and go into the deeper dive, where do we get a hold of you, Lewis, to maybe work with you or connect with you? Because you're just
The absolute best place. The best places to get a hold of me would be Instagram or TikTok. L Stockley Mindset is the handle for those accounts.
Okay.
And on there, if you're still unsure about it, just go through the content because you're going to get a feel for how I work with people and how I bring up the questions that you need to hear and think about. And then if you like that, in my profile is a link that you get to book just a free strategy session with me. Usually go about 15 to 30 minutes. And on that call, my goal is always to change your life, to give you something so that even if we don't ever speak again, your life will be a lot better having spoken to me. That's the goal. Leave it better than when I found it. So you can find me on those platforms. And if you're looking for anything step by step, the last place is, again, just L Stockley Mindset on YouTube.
Okay. And it's STOCK, then LEY. So listening. So L Stockley Mindset. This has been a joy. Our 26 minutes is well up, but the deeper dive is next. Stay with us. And Lewis, thank you. Awesome stuff.
No problem.
Good one, man. Okay, we're coming back with the deeper dive next.